Discussing yesterday here on the show, Alex and I were talking about Odell Beckham Jr. He's making his way to the NBA Finals. He says he's working out in California, hanging out with Johnny Manziel. Meantime, his Giants teammates are going through OTAs back home. So what's your reaction, and how would you have reacted if one of your teammates had done that?
Well, my reaction is this. When Odell is on the football field on Sundays, and based on what I've heard and seen throughout the week, this is a guy that loves the game of football. He goes extremely hard. You don't really have to second-guess a guy like Odell because he will give it his all. But number two, it's almost like you're taking away from the camaraderie of the team, the chemistry, not just on the football field chemistry, but off the football field, in the locker room, out in the community, doing things together so you can actually have a love for who you're working with. But that team seems to be pretty cool, seems to be pretty close. I haven't heard anybody come out on record speaking out against Odell for not being there at OTAs, and also just having fun and then really enjoying his off season to the fullest. It's voluntary. We have to remember that it's not a requirement.
Oh, come on! It's not voluntary. It says it's voluntary, but it's not voluntary.
Well, it is for certain players. It is, because a guy like Odell can afford to miss off-season workouts, OTAs, and not be disciplined for it. What are you going to do? You can't bench him. Right. He's your best offensive weapon.
That's true.
And you can't sit there and say, well, Odell, when you come back, you're going to be working with the tools. You'll be a fool to do that. So as long as he has some type of repertoire with his teammates, he's communicating with these guys, I don't think that's an issue. For me, in Pittsburgh, Kimmer, Alexa, Troy Polamalu never showed up to OTAs. It was not a big issue for us because we knew what we were going to get from Troy on Sundays. The difference between a guy like Troy and Odell is that Troy never was in the spotlight either. So if he was not there with us in Pittsburgh during OTAs, we didn't have to worry about seeing Troy at the NBA Finals or at a big-time Major League Baseball game, any major sporting event that's going on in the country. We didn't have to worry about hearing or seeing about Troy there. And we also knew that Troy was grinded. So those players in New York know Odell better than any one of us out in the media know him. So they know, you know what, we trust that he's getting the job done. But the thing about this issue is that he missed the entire offseason. Let's say he comes into the season, he has an injury-plagued year, or his production goes down as far as numbers and as far as being consistent. Guess what? The first thing people will talk about is what?
Yep. If he drops a pass in the season opener, they're going to go back and say, oh, see, you should have been at OTA.
No, they're not. Yep. That's a little dramatic.
Well, it's not about dropping one pass. It's about being consistent because, see, Odell has set the standard extremely high for the type of player he is. Let's go back to the week before the playoff game against Green Bay on the boat. And you remember the first drive in that game, he dropped a key third down pass.
Right.
And people started to hit, maybe his focus is not there. These guys just took a boat trip down in Miami a week before the playoff game. And remember, the entire wide receiver cast didn't have their best game. And that's something that people talked about. So, right now it's not a big issue. But if he comes out and has issues injury-wise, or his production has been up and down compared to what we've seen the last few years, people will go back to the entire offseason, missing OTAs, because wide receivers and quarterbacks, they really need this time. I don't care if you're a veteran group working with each other for years. You still need this time to continue to improve your craft and have that chemistry, not just with Eli Manning, but the other pass catchers. Remember, he has a new wide receiver there on that team in Brandon Marshall. Brandon has yet to work with Odell in the lineup together. That's something that needs to happen extremely fast, and they will have more than enough time to do that. But right now, it's not a big issue. Long as he comes in and be the Odell that we've grown and love to see out there making it highlight real plays, it won't be an issue.
Okay, one thing really quick here before we wrap up Odell. If there is somebody on the team who, it's maybe their responsibility to call Odell behind the scenes and say, hey, buddy, maybe you should come because it's looking bad, whatever, optics, stuff like that, who's it most likely going to fall to? Is that an Eli Manning situation? Is that a head coach? Is that maybe Brandon Marshall? Who would you say that responsibility falls to?
Well, me personally, you look at that team, and, I've been saying this for quite some time, well, at least the last 2 years. Who is the leader on that team? We don't consider Eli to be a vocal guy. I think Eli should be able to call Odell and say, Odell, you know what, bro, we need you in town. We need you with us. We only got a few weeks left. I would love for you to be here. But do we really see Eli being vocal like that? I don't think so. Then you look at Brandon Marshall. As far as career resume, Brandon Marshall has the leverage to speak and call Odell and say, hey, you know, we need you here. But this is year one for Brandon. Matter of fact, he hasn't even fulfilled his first full year in a Giants uniform. So does he have the leverage to get through to Odell? I don't know. I think Brandon Marshall would probably be the ideal. First and foremost, I'll take that back. Eli Manning should be the guy. But Eli Manning, he doesn't seem to be vocal, but he needs to change the dynamics of his personality. And what's better for the team is when Eli is more vocal, when he's speaking out, and he is the captain. This is a guy that could be a future Hall of Famer. He's a Super Bowl MVP. He has more than enough leverage to reach out to Odell and say, Odell, you've been enjoying your offseason, but we're here grinding. We need you. For us to get an opportunity to hoist to Sticky Lombardi, we need an all-hands-on-deck mentality right now.